Thank you for joining us for our next topic, scaling e-commerce for Black Friday from fragile to AI-ready websites. Today we have with us Miki Huang, CEO of Endeavor, leading enterprise-grade WordPress development and performance optimization projects. We also have Matt Dorman, president of Endeavor, overseeing strategic growth in technology innovation and WordPress and open source development. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having us.
So I understand you two have a presentation you'd like to go through and share with us on this topic. Really excited.
Yes. I am actually trying to, I'll re-share on this.
We love technical difficulties.
It happens, right? We're all in a remote world. I think this is most of our daily lives at this point.
Every day.
There we go. Can you see the screen?
Perfect. Looks great.
All right.
So yeah, today we're going to talk about scaling e-commerce for Black Friday. If you want to move to the next slide, since we got the great intro. And the only thing really relevant here is if you want to find us on LinkedIn later, you can see both of them are our names. So go ahead and search our names. You'll find us afterwards.
Nice.
So we want to talk about the stakes and get you kind of prepped up for why this is important. We talked about Black Friday. Obviously, it's a big day or big set of days in the year, but why would you want to use AI for some of the implementations we're talking about? And if you look at some of the things that we're going to talk about around audience and creator and developer experiences, the audience specifically are expecting very fast, very responsive. They're expecting things that actually engage them more now than ever. So not just fast checkouts as in like clicking fast, but fast in the sense that when they're thinking about something, they want something returned to them right away.
Yeah, to give you a perspective on that, just to chime in, is that 1 second delay is 7% decrease in sales, which means that if you actually have a store that's $1 million sale per day, that's $70,000 lost due to the 1 second delay. So that's why having the fast site and fast checkout process and everything that's kind of seamless is very important. And that's why we don't want a fragile e-commerce store.
Yeah, and these are just standard typical numbers, right? But when you look at Black Friday specifically, in that hyper focused time period when everyone's giving deals, everyone's trying to get them to their stores to check out. It's not just about the seconds of delay making them want to think about things, but they're going to start looking at other places, and then they may or may not ever come back either.
So, OpenAI actually just announced this Monday, right? I think so. It's like a really early this week that they're rolling out instant checkout, which is in place, and now they're planning to roll out to the Shopify soon. So that announcement alone just topped Etsy's stock by 16%.
Yeah, so now we don't need e-commerce stores anymore, right, Miki?
Well, but
let the LLMs sell all of our stuff now.
Yeah, I guess you can kind of do it through there, but there are caveats right now. It's not perfect, and then I think Matt, you actually tested yourself, but I haven't actually tested out. But from what I read, it's just a single item that you can buy, and there's a lot of other caveats around it.
Yeah, I tested it out today, last night and today on my own account, my own paid account also, and it was unfortunately not available. I don't know if you have if you want to switch to that. I don't know if you have tabs.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's my ChatGPT. I tried to get it to go to specifically. I was trying to be very specific. Go to Etsy because I knew that they're part of the program. Get some stickers and try to customize it. Well, of course you can't customize it. So if you scroll down, it's like, well, I'm a big fan of Fat Bear Week, so I want some Fat Bear Week stickers. If you don't know what that is, you should Google it. It's totally safe. See a bunch of fat bears in the Yukon, and so trying to get it to give me a fat bear sticker. End of the day, ChatGPT told me, no, it's not available yet. It's like, well, what do you mean? You just, like Miki was showing, the stock went up 16% because this is available. It's not even rolled out. But I think at the end of the day, this first iteration anyways, you're going to get to, obviously you can surface your products Sounds like they're going to open up or utilize the Google product API or Google product feeds. So if you're already doing that, and then also give you the ability. So if you're not on Stripe, if you're not on Etsy or Shopify, potentially, I think those are the first two that are going to get rolled out. You could have that and then sign in and add your Stripe, and you'll be okay there. But it sounds like it's going to be a single product checkout, which most of the people in here, if you're running stores, you know that, well, that's great, but I want to upsell and I want to cross sell and I want to get my people to come back to buy other things, related things. And that's what we're going to talk about later. So hopefully they'll improve the UI.
Yeah, and also another thing is that there will be fees. So like now Etsy shops and Shopify already have their fees. So for you're the store owner, you have to compensate the fees. But now OpenAI or other LLMs who's going to be rolling this out, they're all also taking the fees. And right now they didn't announce how much the fee is going to be, but there will be fees that they're adding up. So like for you as a e-commerce store owner, there will be a lot of other costs that's going to be associated to it. All right, so moving on to, so when we were talking about audience experience and creator experience and developer experience, what we call is the 3E framework. So Matt, do you want to explain what this is?
Yeah, we like to use the analogy of a three-legged stool, three-legged chair, where you have each of these pillars supporting a platform, right? So platform being your website, your commerce platform, potentially your social media platforms, your ad sales, again, using the word platform. So all of those things resting on these three pillars where you have audience, we'll explain that in a bit, creator and developer, they're pretty obvious, right? So any one of these things, if they get a little short or you're not focused on one, then the whole platform starts to get wobbly. And if any of them break, then the whole thing falls over. It doesn't matter how good the other two are.
So to start with, to deeper dive into what these are, audience experience is pretty much what you see, the front end, what your customers see, feel, and interact. So anything that you see on the front end and storefront side, on the e-commerce site, or any platforms, that's what we consider audience experience.
Yeah, and when you look at creator, that's obviously the people that are creating the content for you, but also not just product details, but creating the social marketing feeds, the ad copy for you. If you're cross-selling to other sites, you're creating other copy there. So we like to have that in like one platform that you're delivering from one place.
And developer experience is pretty much the engine room, so technical backbone, technical foundation, or DevOps, so anything that relates to your technology to push the code and make the features and everything. So like to make your site secure, stable, and efficient, that's the developer experience.
Yeah. So first up is audience experience, right, Miki?
Yep. So there are things that you can integrate with AI and some of the benefits. We just want to highlight a few of it that are kind of more common and something that you can look into implement easier than other things. So the first one is AI search, which is AI-driven search, meaning that customers, so when you, to kind of give you a perspective, so if you don't have AI integration, have just regular search, sometimes you look for some products and if you have a typo or you don't necessarily remember the exact name of it, those can actually give you a zero result. So you might not be able to find the ones that you're looking for just because you don't know the exact name of it or because you didn't know how to spell it or something like that. But AI search.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep,
I was going to say that's typical, like that kind of standard search today, or 6 months ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as to when the AI search like Agolia or Melisearch or any of these other ones, Searchcraft or Combio, like I always pronounce that wrong. But yeah, so they are pretty much what we call the vector search. So like it's searching by the meaning. So you don't necessarily have to know the exact spelling of it, know the product name, but as with the context and all the vector search, it will search the right product or right context for you, which means that you're going to have a fewer bounce rate because you don't necessarily have to know the exact things to type in to search for it. So you can find it easier, which means that you can convert better and which leads to better sales. So higher conversions and more sales.
Yeah, and if anyone's looked at their search, kind of what people are searching for, at least on a global basis, more and more people are searching websites the way that they're interacting with LLMs, where they're asking it questions, right? So if you're just integrating with a basic keyword search, someone puts in a question, like how do I check out, or what's the shipping address, or what's the shipping time, right? It's going to give you some articles about shipping, but it's not going to answer the question without an AI integration.
Right, right. So the other one is chatbot. I think this is very common. So I know
We love
speakers
chatbots.
about chatbot. Yeah. So Matt, do you really use chatbots?
So I use it to take out some frustration sometimes. I mean, some of them work really well and some of them just really don't work. And you end up in a deeper spot than you actually started with. And it's typically from like support type ticketing questions for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on the flip side, there were times that I used it that it's like if I was looking for some basic questions that a lot of people will ask, like I'll get the answer right away instead of waiting for the next business day, 8 o'clock, or whatever time zone there people who are working to get the answer for that. So it actually does provide a happier customer experience with some of the simple questions like that.
Yeah, and I would say depending on the platform or the the website hosting, whether you're Shopify, WordPress, WooCommerce, or others, the integrations are all different levels. But this chatbot's integration is pretty simple, where you have to tell it where the information is, but the actual bot itself learns very quickly for the most part, I would say, and it's going to be indexing based on your content.
Mhm. So that's something that is good to have, and then like if you probably want to make sure you implement it correctly as well.
Yeah, I would think. I mean, you're definitely going to want to monitor this and actually look at the answers that it's given. We've all seen the hallucinations. I mean, some of these are doing it as well, but those are more the bigger ones where they have such a big mass of information.
Yeah, and sometimes if you implement it incorrectly, you might come back to a full circle to like come back to exactly where you started the conversation from. But anyways,
yeah. We've separated this out with recommendation. That's another set of AI tools where you're starting to. This is going above and beyond what we've used to implement with recommendations, where it was you tag all your products, and when you're on a product page, anything tagged relevant to it would get added to it, or maybe the top selling, or maybe you're just manually doing it, right? This recommendation is more attuned to the user's interaction with your website, and possibly even more if they have other tools on the site as well. So this is a big kind of market increase where you're going from 10 to 20% higher order value. So they're adding more things, right?
Yeah, and then just to give an example from like what you're looking for in the beginning, that you look for the fat bear stickers. So if without the recommendation, like a smarter recommendation, it might be just tagged as a sticker. So when you look for any recommended, you might also like those kind of items. It might be just other stickers that are not relevant to the topic. But as to it's a smarter recommendation, it will actually know the meaning of it. So it will actually provide you with a different product that's fat bear sticker or item related. So it's going to be the fat bear cups or mugs or tumblers, things like that. So that's more relevant to you because you're specifically looking for that product because you're interested in and you like that topic. So that's a better and smarter way to recommend it to upsell and then also cross-sell. So that's why it's increasing 10 to 20% higher order values.
I think we'll move along a little quicker because we're going to run out of time if we don't have the end Q&A. Right. And we have a longer Q&A setup. So behavior analytics, very similar to what we have today with Hotjar and Full Story. Like tools have kind of iterated on what exists today. So these are, and I kind of heard on one of the earlier sessions where you're talking about tracking how people are utilizing the site. And if you know what the expected user flow is, looking at Hotjar or Full Story and seeing how people are actually using it, it can give you recommendations on improving those things, but it also just tell you where things are going wrong.
Right. All right. So moving on to creator experience. So some of the better benefits, I think assistance. I think you can explain that better than I can. So.
Yeah, in the assistance we're talking about, and again, we're trying to push forward that we're not trying to generate content completely with AI tools. These assistants are meant to assist you in generating content. So a lot of input back and forth. Ideally, these are Originality AI. The top ones are all kind of integrated with your workflow. That's the discrepancy right now, where a lot of these tools are outside of your current editorial process or current creative process where you're having to go to the tool, do all the things, and then copy and paste. We'd like to see a lot more of that being pulled into the actual content creation tools.
So another thing is the content detection. This is actually the interesting because I think I was talking to Matt about this. And then it's one of the lines that I put in here. So sites that are perceived as a human written is 39% more value in site sales, which means that we're making sure that we're not pumping out the low quality ChatGPT AI generated content. You want to make sure that you have quality content that's trustworthy. So what this content detection does is that it's actually detecting low quality AI written content. So like you want to make sure that your contents are authentic and it's not penalizing your brand quality because of bad generated content that you're putting out.
Yeah, this circles back to what I opened it up with. We don't want to prop up being able to generate content all through AI, right? So whether you're doing it internally, you have a team that's doing it, or a third-party team, right? It'd be nice to be able to check on them. So you could kind of use this in two ways. Either they can use this tool to make sure that the content that they're working with an AI tool is not too AI-like, or just validate the content that's coming in that you're getting sent or being paid, or you're paying for someone else to do, that they're not just using AI tools. Because I guarantee if you're sending it out to freelancers or things like that, they're saving their time by generating a lot of AI content.
Right. So something like Originality AI or GPT-0 are the tools that can help you with detecting this. And then this is more common in educational industry, but like this is also applicable across all the industry because it's easy to tell sometimes that if it's GPT written or AI written. So you want to make sure that that's not the case for your content.
Yeah, and the next area is similar in that it's going to be tools that will evaluate your content, but this is a little bit different where it's not evaluating it based on quality, it's based on how good it is for your identified audience. So we use ICP, the people you've identified as your personas, your customers, the people that are actually coming to your site and you want them to purchase, right? So if you put all that data into these tools, Content Seer is actually one that we built. We've been testing it out for a long time on content sites. Works really well on brand sites as well, where it'll give you grading on existing content or content you're creating to help you map keywords, but also just general content in a way that those people are going to either want to buy something or want to come back to read more.
Yeah, and another application of this personalization or persona application is that you can actually interview your personas, the ideal persona. So like you might not be able to have access to all your customers, then you can actually simulate the persona interview by just getting the pain points and just understanding pain points so you can apply to your content or your products or your workflows so that you can make it better improvement for the better experience. Right. So workflow automation.
So these types of tools are really around automating the actual process that you generate content. So we have talked about a bunch of tools. You can then somewhat automate those functions for going one step to the next. You can also automate the approval process, which is really nice in really high stress. Over the next few months or month and a half, I guess, or less, you're probably going to be generating a lot of content around your products. And maybe you have a workflow where it requires a lot of approvals. Maybe some of those approvals can be removed by these types of tools. That's where these would come in. So you're now accelerating the time that one person can get something from an idea to being potentially published if you're going all in for that.
Yeah, and then also blending into some of these things as a content detection. So you want to bake in those checks and balances before you publish your content. Right.
Yep.
Moving on to our favorite experience.
Yeah, we are primarily a tech agency, and the two of us are very technical. So we use these tools daily, just for all kinds of things. So might get a little bit boring, but we're going to cut this one really short. I feel like, and go pretty high level. We've been using, Miki, basically you could replace all these just like we were talking about before. You just use like Lullaball, right, or Bolt, and you just tell it what you want, and you don't need a code environment, right? And it just produces a site for you.
So side note, we actually try to test it out because like we want to know what vibe coding is and how far the AI coding can go. But unfortunately, it's not there yet. So we had a lot of fights with the vibe coding, and then I think there was an article I was actually reading about this morning that I was talking to Matt that the Microsoft is actually trying to roll out something called Copilot, or they want to do the vibe work workload, or I forgot the exact term for it. So instead of vibe coding, they want to make the AI do some of the works that people are doing. So the result is that actually it's negatively impacting it because people actually spend more time fixing what's not written correctly, or just like your coworker is fixing whatever you started with the vibe workload or whatever. And it's just like they're spending way too much time fixing it than just starting from the scratch.
I'm
And
so sorry, Miki. I see what you mean. I will try better to do better next time. How many times
so
have you seen stuff like that around vibe coding or even ChatGPT and other LLMs?
yeah. Yeah, this is exactly response I was getting. I think I was fighting with vibe coding at one point. That is like, and I was like, "You didn't do anything. How can you not fix this?" Like, you're absolutely right. I completely didn't understand your question. And then same results. So that happens. And then if imagine that happening in just other work, not just in some of the specific work that you want AI to do. So that's giving a lot of headaches. But on the flip side, it does do the basic things and a more tedious, very tedious thing that's just time consuming, faster, and easier.
Yeah, so we like to look at this as kind of a flow of the way you're doing development. So you've got code assistants helping you inline doing your developers doing code updates, whether they're on templates or in actual code. You got code quality checks, so that's kind of not replacing but augmenting team leads and maybe managers. And then you've got the next step of deployment, right? So being able to put in actual AI testing or determining where to deploy things, that automation is important. And then not finally, because that's usually integrated with deployment, but the testing. So you test during deployments, but you also test after deployments and you're monitoring. So we talked about some of the Hotjar and things like that in the audience. A lot of those tools can be utilized in part of the developer experience where they're testing out, making sure that all those are integrated, and every time there's a deployment, these all get run. Because the last thing you want to do is have an outage that you don't know about.
Right. Right. And also you want to catch potential issues before it happens, especially around the holiday sales like this, like the big Black Friday or even Cyber Monday. These days it's not just 2 days of sale, it's like Cyber Week almost. So you want to be prepared.
Yep.
Yeah. Or so you want to be prepared for all this traffic spikes and then all the potential issues premature before it actually happens. So those are why testing and monitoring is very important. Anyway, so moving on to, so we talked about 3 different areas of what you can apply AI integration. So just to give the recommendation on recap, it's just more.
Did you mute yourself? So audience, we have prioritizing the AI search. This is like leveling out what you want to implement, right? So we feel like AI search and recommendations is something you're going to get a lot of impact on your websites. The chat is important, but very easy to implement. So it's almost a no-brainer. Obviously, it's going to get revenue growth. Now, if you implement it, you don't want to implement it a week before your sale. You want to implement it almost now so that you have time to test. Nikki, you're muted, maybe? I don't hear you. Or is it just me?
No, yeah, looks like we lost your sound, Miki.
Okay. Oh, it came in and out. I'll do the creator while she's getting it. Interrupting me when you're in. So we got creator. We talked about those tools around really the process of creating your content. And again, not just in your e-commerce system or CMS, but in all the systems. So if you can get the automated campaigns, the automated processes done so that you're augmenting your thing, but also integrating the detect originality, that's going to allow you to have better brand recognition. And of course, the end goal is SEO or AEO to get integrated into those tools. And then finally, the developer. Are you back yet, Nikki? Sorry. So developer tools. And again, we're mainly developers, but this helps support the other two really well. where these are always testing the things that you've already put in place. These are integrating the things you've already put in place. So if you're not doing this kind of workflow or methodology, something is going to get missed and something's going to get broken along the way if you're not monitoring, and you're going to have downtime during that.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so to wrap up, we'll just do it really quickly. If you don't adapt, actually no, if you adapt, it drives more sale, fewer lost cards, long-term resilience. On the flip side, if you don't, Matt, you.
Well, if you don't, I think we talked about this pretty specifically. You're going to have more downtime, and specifically around Black Friday, right? And we all know this. If you have downtime during Black Friday, it's the 7% or whatever percentages that we've thrown out there are magnified by maybe 100-fold, depending on your industry and depending on how much you're pushing during that sale. So it's a massive risk. And to do nothing would be the opposite of doing all these implementations. And by doing that, you're going to be hurt by other people advancing fast. So you may not have downtime, but you're still going to mess up.
All right. So, I mean, we do have AI Readiness Quiz. We're going to show a little bit, but then we can actually move on to the questions. So if you're curious about how ready you are in terms of AI, you can go to this URL or QR code and just test it out. I'll have a separate video just kind of over explaining what the results are saying, because it also gives you some perspectives based on your industry. So it compares with the average, what industry is doing versus how your score is, so that you can kind of figure out where you are in the AI readiness side.
All right, some Q&A for you both. We have a couple questions from the audience. So first one, if you could only instrument 5 metrics for the war room, which are they, and what alert thresholds do you set?
5. I'll let Miki start. She said she was going to throw me under the bus, so 5.
Yeah, I was going to throw you under the bus. So the metrics in terms of, I'll start with developer experience. Some of the metrics that you want to put in. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of understanding so if not. So yeah, so for developer side that you want, so I'm techie, so we want to make sure that your deployment. So what's called, there's a DORA metrics that you can actually decide to figure out how well your development workflow is doing. So it's like how fast you're deploying and what are the failure rates. I might be messed this up. So there are 4 things, but and also how quickly can you revert if there's a failure. And I forgot the 5th one, so I'll probably get back to it. So you can put those metrics in to make sure that your workflow for the deployment is feature development and deployment is fast enough so that you can always be on top of the most relative features and the things that you want to push out.
Yeah, and from the audience side, I would say I would probably go with probably your bounce rate as the first one, especially around Black Friday, where you're going to be sending a lot of traffic. And this is not, I would not, given that you're sending from ads, obviously the bounce rate is going to be different than when you're just getting organic traffic. So it's hard to say thresholds on this one unless you have past data around these types of ads. So you know what type of bounce rate to expect, because it's going to be high. It's higher than, again, organic. But I would say bounce rate would be another one. And I would even throw in the obvious the cart abandonment. This one's hard too, because you might have really good ways of pulling those people back in that actually end up upselling more things depending on your kind of technique and getting them to buy more things after they've abandoned the first time. So I'm not going to have good threshold numbers for any of these because they're very variable based on the site and based on kind of what you've done in the past.
Yeah, also depending on the business as well. So like, and also size of your business. So like, it's really hard to just say one size fit all. So there are recommended thresholds, but you want to get close to it. But sometimes you might be doing way better than that, but you don't want just to be comparing to the average of the industry. So it really depends on your business, how well you did, like I said, compared to your previous data or anything like that. Some of the basic things that you want to track, like sales and all those things, your sales number might be completely different from another company or even another competitor. So like those things has to be set by your own term is probably a better threshold.
Miki, do you want to throw in like time from ideation to product live? Like we do measure that in Creator.
But
Like
yeah,
that's from that's using all these tools. You have an idea of maybe a product or just a way of promoting a product, right? So you have to generate all the content. So that's a thing that you can track, especially when you're in the weeds of sending out promotions really, really quickly, knowing how soon or how quick you can go from a sale idea or a promotion idea all the way through executing it across your platforms, and knowing how fast you can get that up is something you should measure, and then have available, so you know, like when the CEO says, I need more sales, well, I can do this now and it'll be up by X time today, and
Yeah.
it'll have this measure, or it's too late, we're already done.
Yeah, it's similar to like in the beginning when I was talking about how fast is your deployment. You also want to measure that how quickly you can push out your content, because there might be some random bottlenecks that are not technical, but you want to also eliminate that by reviewing it frequently.
So it very much sounds like there are some things that are subjective based on the company, and others that are going to be objectives that are pretty standard across the board.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think so.
Yeah. Next question: are there any white papers or similar things to understand better, to consider how we architect our CX?
So we have a checklist that we actually there's like a bunch of metrics and what are how hard it is to implement each thing. So we can share that after the fact. But
Yeah, well, that's a good one. I was gonna say, like, the bigger brands, like Forrester has some good things around especially individual products. It's where a lot of those lay flat is around the integration between the two, and when you're like, they're really good at evaluating a single product, and telling you how good this one product is. There's not a lot out there that says, all right, these are the ones I need to use, and then I'm going to throw this one in, and how is that going to work out? I mean, blogs will do that sometimes, but it's going to be pretty lightweight, without having someone actually come in and consult with you a little bit, or just internal. Again, you get all the product information from the various places, and then you can look at them and see how well they should integrate with each other. But the multipliers, like, it's not going to multiply the 7% and then the 20% and then the 30%. They're all going to overlap a bit.
No, that's great. Next question. Which bot classes do you rate, limit, or challenge during promos, and how do you avoid collateral damage to real buyers?
I have an answer, but Miki, if you want to.
You can have your answer now.
So the hard thing is, right now you kind of have to spend the money and allow the bandwidth bills to go up a bit. Now that depends, right? If you're on a platform that's super expensive and you're not on a more custom platform where you have control over that, it's really hard to differentiate right now, especially with, at one point, a lot of companies were going to block OpenAI's tools, right? Well, now, as of this week, that's how you might get users that buy your product without even coming to the website, and they're actually finally getting your content to the place where they're actually going to make a purchase. I don't think it's going to be, the first iteration is not going to be good, so it might be okay to still block them. But there's not enough data around, like, who's too small and that's not going to be too big in 2 weeks. Sorry.
So it's not one fit everything all question, unfortunately.
Yeah, unless they're coming from Russia or China.
Right.
I guess I could have started with that. That's almost sorry for internet if they're international, but if I'm in the U.S. and I get stuff coming from China or Russia, they're just trying to scrape my site to then replicate it somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, like, we did explain to one of our clients too that, like, you can't just completely block everything, because there might be something that, but if you know the patterns, because this was like US based, so like if you know that you're not going to be targeting outside of US, just like Matt said, that you can block out all the international IPs and things like that. So you'll learn the patterns to block it. But if you block everything, you might lose your customers, or you might lose your potential clients. So like, it just needs to be, and then sometimes there might be some people actually putting the weird, it's not just a bot. So you also need to distinguish that, like some things really look like the actual human written thing or human interaction. Those things unfortunately can be 100% blocked, but you need to be a little open to it just in case that you might be getting some clients that are, or customers that are in that space, that pattern or whatever. What do you call it? Yeah.
No, I think those are great insights. And then last question that we'll have time for: do you have a process mapping tool recommendation to see the end-to-end CX journey that you could share?
I do not. I'm going to say that I'm the least process person on the panel of the two of us. I implement what Miki tells me to implement on the process side, but I don't know if we have real tools around the mapping part of it. I mean, we're big kind of process flow people, and those are very low tech, but it's almost the Excel of process mapping.
Yeah. I actually, well, yeah, I'll have to think about it, and then like I could share that with you after the fact. Because like I would joke to Matt all the time that like I always remember things after the fact. So when I do that, I'll share that with you guys so that it's easy to access.
No, I think the audience would certainly appreciate that. Just want to thank you for the time. Just one more thing. Any final thoughts that you want to share, and your thoughts about Prepathon so far?
I'll let Matt go first again.
No real final thoughts. I mean, this is a interesting world. This whole year has been an interesting year, as you've seen from a lot of the other presentations and anything you're watching, right? Some of this stuff is not really new. Like, do the things that you're doing really, like, make sure you're doing them well and executing them to the way you thought you were going to be doing them. That would be one way of putting it, kind of in a nutshell. Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of great content on these sessions. So continue watching the rest and watch the ones from yesterday that you missed.
Yeah, and then another thing is like I think that the whole role of AI integration. I think I mentioned it multiple times throughout this thing, and the Met too, is that you probably have to have a checks and balances in place, because some of the things that are way premature, like the OpenAI's instant cart checkout and all these other things, it's a little early stage. You want to make sure that you take advantage of it, but at the same time, it's not perfect, because there has to be some checks and balances in order to be successful, because you don't want to be trusting it too much for any area, pretty much. So I think I saw some of the other the presentations around like how to effectively use it and things like that. So that was very helpful. So, but one of the things that we want to make sure that is that use it wisely, and also make sure that you check your own AI content creation or whatever creations.
No, that's great. Matt, Miki, thank you again. Really enjoyed the presentation today. Thank you for joining us. Up next, we're going to have Moise back for a Black Friday survival challenge, and then we'll end the day with a final presentation by Christian Helms. Thank you so much.
Thank you.